Hello and welcome back to the Cascade Subdivision. Today we're going to look at some of the progress that I've gotten done over the past couple of days, and as well as some of the new products that I've picked up here for the layout. Okay, so to start this update, we will talk a little bit about some of the new scenery progress I've made here in Westfir, starting around the portal at Tunnel 22. If you recall from my previous video, the layout tour, in the first official layout update, I talked about how I wanted to come back to Westfir and address some of the shortcomings that I saw with the first round of scenery. And so there's a few things that I want to talk about. The first is that you'll notice I removed all of the deciduous trees that I had in here, all those super trees and some of the conifer trees as well. I do plan to add those trees back in some form or fashion. I just wasn't happy with the ground cover around them, and I'm not exactly sure if I was happy with the colors. I want to look a little bit more and get a better idea of what those trees look like and how they're arranged this spring out in Oregon, and then come back to dealing with that. However, the one thing I can say about the trees is up above the tunnel, where I've got some conifer trees there, I'm definitely going to be adding quite a few more to populate that hillside and kind of complete the view block, as well as fill in all the way to the ground there. So yes, that is what is coming with the trees. But the things that I did do, the first thing to start with is down here in the grasses. I came back with a coat of, or I should say a layer of Silflor autumn grass. It's just a 6mm kind of brownish yellow tan grass, and I put that right over the layers of 4mm spring grass that I had. It just kind of tones everything down and makes it a little bit thicker. Now the other thing I did around this rock outcropping here on the aisle side of the tunnel was remove a lot of the smaller grass tufts and bushes. It just looked a little too sparsely vegetated for what I'd seen out in Oregon, and I came back with Martin Welberg low bushes, as well as some Martin Welberg grass tufts, and layered those in there. And I've got a light green color, which is this very bright color here, and then I've got a spring green color, which is the little bit more medium green. And looking at spring photos from the Cascade Sub, you definitely see this lighter green color and some yellows, and so I really like how those bushes are representative of that, as well as some of the bushes and material in the brown here that have not yet started to bloom. The other thing that I added along here to represent just some of the thick, unruly, and untamed growth that you see all over the Pacific Northwest was actually polyfiber, and I sprinkled some fine ground foam over the top, and that's all held together with hairspray, which is a great technique for creating some random bushes, and it's got a very fine and airy feel to it. And I might go back and add another layer in certain areas, but I really like how that turned out. I just wanted to give another wide angle shot of Westfir to show some of the scenery progress that I made all the way along the backdrop there. I'm going to come back in with some trees and maybe do a little painting on the backdrop to add a little bit more depth. But if you want to go back to previous layout tour, Westfir is one of the first scenes that I talk about, and so you can get a look and get a better idea of the transition that was made in terms of scenery. Okay, now for the next project that I've been working on. This was a quick project, and as you can see here in Oakridge, things have gotten a whole lot brighter, and at this angle you can kind of see the LEDs peeking out from the fascia there. I have yet to zip tie those and get that all cleaned up, but I was able to install the LED lighting in between. That is, it goes in between the two decks and brightens things up. I had to tap into a new strip of LED lights, but really excited how quick and easy this was to install, and the results here in Oakridge kind of speak for themselves in terms of lighting up the scene. So now that the lighting is in, I can proceed with finishing up all the terrain work, which I have started all the way in the back there, as well as along the front here, and in the yard itself to prepare for scenery. Okay, now to close out this layout update, I wanted to talk about some of the new locomotives that I've acquired for the Cascade Sub real briefly. The first one is this Athearn Genesis SD70 Ace, number 9082. This is a non-sound, non-DCC unit from the factory, and I put a ESU Look Pilot 5, I believe is the decoder. That's gone in there. Really easy installation. Great features in the decoder. Make it easy to control the lighting features, the ditch lights and the headlights that come in with this unit. And I've got this one consisted with one of my scale trains tier 4s, which does have sound, and I've been running those two units together the past couple of days, and they work great. Definitely help to modernize the fleet a little bit, and I'm looking forward to finishing up this unit with some weathering, and it'll be a regular in terms of operations here on the Cascade Sub. And last but not least, I want to talk about the two Athearn Genesis ES44ACs that I recently acquired. Both of these have Tsunami 2 decoders in there. And this front unit here, the Canadian Pacific 8727, probably wondering why a Canadian Pacific unit on the layout. Canadian Pacific runs an oil train over Union Pacific's I-5 corridor, which it begins in Portland and then runs down all the way to Roseville, California. And so Canadian Pacific power is often seen on the Cascade Sub, and it is often paired with this unit in the back there, 5529, or I should say 5529 is often seen in consist with Canadian Pacific power. And so these two locomotives fit both the railroad from a prototypical standpoint, and in terms of them being consisted together. Both of these units will see a lot of action on the Cascade Sub. That about wraps up everything in this layout update. Not a lot of progress on the layout recently, but if you were following along on Facebook, I have definitely been making a lot of progress in terms of weathering, as well as acquiring rolling stock, and of course these locomotives here, which will only help develop and kind of flesh out the operating scheme on the layout. Plans for the first operating session to be held this summer, and so I'm working hard to get all the things done here on the layout to be able to accommodate that, as well as have enough engines and rolling stock to keep the layout functioning as I envision it. I feel pretty close to that mark, but a couple more months to go. So stay tuned. Be sure to like and subscribe to follow along to more videos from the Cascade Subdivision. Probably a lot of weathering and detailing content coming soon, and later in the spring and summer more updates on scenery and operations here at the layout.